welcome back to another episode of the Rev Rx Podcast, where we show you how to thrive in faith, family, and health. My name is Chad Potts, and I'm your host. Today's episode is a conversation between two pharmacists, but probably not the kind that you're used to. We're going to be talking today about hope beyond the prescription pad. My guest, Cory Jenks, is a fellow pharmacist. He's also an improv comedian and a lifestyle coach. And he's helping people reverse chronic illness, not just with medication, but with mindset, movement, meaning, and yes, laughter. Today, we're going to explore together why the healthcare system in America is great at managing disease, but not so great at restoring health and vitality. And what you can do, starting today, to take ownership of your body, your habits, and your future. This isn't about guilt or shame. It's about freedom. You're going to love what Cory has to say. So let's dive in. I introduce to you my friend, Cory Jenks. Cory, brother, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rev Rx Podcast. Man, what a privilege it is to have you here on the show. I followed you for a while, and I couldn't wait for this interview.
I know, and it almost like it's taken like 3 times to happen. So this was, the best things are never easy.
That's right.
If we thought it would be easy, everyone would do it. So here we are.
That means it's going to be extra epic. So
yes, indeed.
Well, man, you're a baseball fan. You're a fellow pharmacist. You're a comedian, which is awesome. I love that. And really, you're just an all around great guy that you've realized that you need to carve your own path sometimes in life. Mm-hmm. And I resonate 1,000% with that. So welcome to the show, man. Before we get into a lot of what you're into, mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about you, kind of where you come from, a little bit about how you landed where you are today?
Yeah, well, I did a complete 360. So I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. Baseball fan. I played baseball in high school, not well enough to where my chemistry teacher was like, "What do you want to do with your life?" I said, "I want to pitch for the Cubs." And she said, "No, you're not. How about pharmacy? You like chemistry." So at 17, made the fateful choice to go to pharmacy, to do pharmacy. I went across the country to the University of South Carolina just for a little adventure. Mm-hmm. And I love out-of-state tuition and student loans. So, it was a great choice. Awesome 6 years, came back home to Tucson, did a residency at the VA for a year. I graduated 11, finished residency at 12. And then I have practiced as a pharmacist since. I've done inpatient, outpatient retail. Right now I practice as an ambulatory care pharmacist. So I do, for those who are not pharmacists listening to this, we can function, think of it like a physician's assistant. So I have agreements with doctors. I can write prescriptions, and I basically hone in on diabetes and obesity are my specialties. That's really where my passion lies. My wife's a nurse practitioner. She works for a company that does diabetes and obesity management through lifestyle. That's really my biggest push with patients. So that's the professional side. So as you can see, 360 across the country and back. Personally, I've done, you mentioned comedian. I feel like that is a subjective description. Some may find me funny, some may not.
Depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, exactly. Depends on what the audience says. But I've done improv comedy since 2013. And I kind of integrated that into my pharmacy practice in life. And I think that's, improv comedy are life skills we could all use: listening, communication, teamwork, empathy, all the stuff that healthcare does poorly that angers us. Mm. So I try to implement that. And then I'm a dad of 3. Basically, by the time you hear this, I'll have a 7-year-old, almost 5-year-old, and a almost 2-year-old. So lots of fun. And I think that probably gets my description out in a nutshell. And if I missed anything, that you've done your homework on me. If I missed something, I can focus on it. So
well, and there's a lot of commonalities between us. Same thing here. I played baseball in high school and wanted to play in college and had a couple of walk-on opportunities. But when I started in college, my advisor basically told me, "Okay, you can." I was pre-med at the time. Mm-hmm. You can go pre-med or you can play baseball. Which one you want to do? They're like, you miss too many labs and different things with baseball. And I said, well, let's pursue pre-med. And then I realized I don't like touching people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Same journey. Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, pharmacy's cool. And the rest is history. And I really love the whole lifestyle management. Mm-hmm. And you and I have kind of both talked about it. I tell people, if I could work myself out of a job as a pharmacist, man, I would be thrilled, because that means that we're getting healthy. Mm-hmm. And that means we don't need all of these medications. Well, medications always have some role, probably. Yeah. But largely it becomes a crutch to us a lot of times, right?
I agree. I think that I kind of parallel this to like acute versus chronic issues.
Yeah.
Acutely, our healthcare system is really good. If you
Yeah.
get hit by a car, if you have some trauma, if you have an infection, we're pretty darn good at fixing you up,
Mhm.
keeping you alive, and then getting you back to life. But we do an awful job of chronically managing people, and
Sure.
I feel like we chronically manage. We call it management. I would like to reverse it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the root of a lot of this is metabolic syndrome, metabolic disease, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance. That really is the root of many of our chronic ills, and we do an awful job of helping people really gain their life back. And for me, the chronic suffering that people have, where their lives revolve around being overweight, being sick, low energy, low enjoyment of life because your life is revolving around pharmacy trips, checking blood sugars, worrying about blood sugars, blood pressures, etc. We're awful at that, and so I think that you and I are on the same page. Of the day that I could leave work and they say, Cory, there's no more chronically sick people, I would say, great. But also, if my kid has a severe infection, we're going to use an antibiotic. So I think there's you can swing too far one way or another.
That's right.
Of trying to be like super holistic, but like there's times where a medicine's okay.
Yep.
It's just that when the first thing we do when someone has a little high blood sugar is reach for a prescription pad, we're setting them up for years of dependence on a system that's going to only make them kind of really more sick.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love the way you differentiated that. The acute system is fantastic. And we all have experienced that, I think, to some degree or another. Some acute exacerbation and injury, something happens and you go to the ER, they fix you up, they get you back. Even the surgical system and the way things operate that way, I've been very pleased with the American healthcare system from an acute standpoint. I think where we have room to grow and maybe even reverse our thinking is in that chronic management. And so, it's kind of the thought of, instead of prescribing a drug, prescribing lifestyle changes. So a lot of the chronic disease states that we see, and a lot of what you focus on, are similar things to what I focus on too. I work in a very similar, I guess, program.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those situations where most of the risk factors and most of the causes of those are lifestyle related. And so it only makes sense that the cure, the healing, would take place from a lifestyle perspective too. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and what your general approach is as you see patients with diabetes and obesity, and kind of what the first step might look like?
I think the first step is to tell them to forgive themselves, because when we talk about a healthcare system that does a poor job of managing their chronic illness, they're not reversing it. I think we got to step back and realize we live in a society and an environment that's designed to make us sick.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but I like central air. I like pickup trucks. And I like being able to hit a button on my phone and have food delivered to my house in 30 minutes. These are things that people 150, 200 years ago would have loved. Like the richest people, kings, couldn't live like we do.
Right.
Unfortunately, the richest people, like the poorest people, could live like the richest people years ago. And you can have these delicious, unhealthy things delivered to you. You don't have to get out of your chair. Like, you drive down the road and there's 17 fast food restaurants. There's billboards. There's scientists making food addicting. Yep. So I tell patients who really beat themselves up. And I think one thing I'll say too is I think our healthcare system does a lot of patient blame. The reality is, imagine someone who's stressed, working 2 jobs, terrible family life, no relationships, no family support, and you ask them to eat whole, healthy, organic foods. It's like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So they're reaching for these comforts, whether it's their phone, their Netflix, their fast food. So the first thing I say is forgive yourself, because there are really smart people who used to sell cigarettes. They're now selling us food. That being said, it's now your responsibility with this knowledge to help come up with a system, and I'll help you build this environment to get healthier. So I think the first thing I address is the self-hatred that people will have, and have some compassion and empathy for the situations that people are in. And then it's, what do you want life to look like? Because some people will say, I will never touch a weight. I will never go to the gym. I will not move. I will take insulin and eat cookies. And I say, all right, I can do that. I can make your numbers look okay. You will get sicker. You will get fatter. And that is your choice. I cannot make you do anything. Right. It's really about figuring out their why and what they want life to look like. And then from there, it's, okay, what are you willing to change? What would a different lifestyle look like? What would that, get you? So it's not the paternalistic, you must do this. It's the, well, what do you want to do? And then we'll help you get there.
And that's a paradigm shift a little bit from what we traditionally think of as as the medical system.
Mhm.
Because there's a couple things to unpack there I'd love to talk about. Number one is that there is a lot of judgment and shame when
Mhm.
it comes to, okay, I have this chronic disease.
Mhm.
And I think, number one, I love that you address that first, because that needs to, if they're in this cycle of this perpetual judgment and shame, self-judgment, you know, self-hatred, whatever you want to call it, I can't believe I let myself get into this situation. This is all my fault. They're never going to have that breakthrough, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, because that cycle is just going to continue.
Mhm.
And they may show some improvement, but the minute that they go back, oh look, there's me again. I failed. And so it's not that you failed. You're in a system that doesn't support health.
Mhm. Yeah.
When people go on a diet, we feel like that's extreme. When in
Mhm.
reality, that's just eating normally. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, we, we
Our idea of normal eating has been so hijacked and
yeah,
messed up that, like, I healthy is relative. Like,
yeah,
there are people who are healthy from the spectrum of vegan to carnivore. So I'm not going to get into the diet. I'm not going to get into the diet wars here.
right,
There's a way of eating that many of us can follow and be healthy, and I've seen all ends of the perspective.
sure,
But when my wife and I show up to, walk around with food for our kids, and even when our daughter was almost a year old and she started eating, we would just give her small versions of real food, and people were
hmm
just like, "You're not giving her rice puffs?" I'm like, "No, she can eat real food." Like, and I'm not shaming people who give rice puffs. This is,
right,
again, but we're so conditioned to be like, well, we obviously need to have a meal every 2 hours, and we
mm,
obviously have to snack, and we obviously have to have these processed bags of stuff with us all the time. And
hmm
I'm fortunate that my wife and I and a lot of our friends are in a similar way, where we'll prepare most of our own food. Eating out's a rare thing, but the norm is not that. And so
yeah,
when you try to get away from that, people are just like, "How can you take away my fast food? Because it's not supposed to have it."
yeah,
Like Taco Bell's, I'm sorry if they sponsor you, but like, they literally came up with a fourth meal. They're like, "We haven't made people fat enough yet. We need to give them a
right,
fourth meal." Like, no, you don't. You don't need to eat burritos at 11 p.m. So
right,
it's reshifting like what we consider normal, and it's hard. If
hmm
all, and I'm 38 as we record this in 2025, so I grew up with Fruit by the Foot and Gushers and Dunkaroos and all of the like yummy snack foods, Saturday morning cartoons and
hmm
cereals, and we just thought that was normal. But
yeah,
then, like, our grandparents were like, "What the heck are you eating?" We're like, "Quiet, old man. You don't know what you're talking about." And like,
yeah.
they kind of
It's
did.
a new day.
They kind of did.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
to buck the trend of what is marketed to us as normal is hard.
yeah. It is, and realizing that world that we are spending every day in, and that we're inundated,
Mm-hmm.
with the marketing, and we're up against the best minds in the world. All of
Yeah.
these food companies. And this isn't I'm not. My Taco Bell endorsement is pending currently, so we're okay talking about
All right. Yeah.
that. But like, you were inundated with commercials and marketing, and the best minds in the world that are creating these slogans and these campaigns, and
These
sometimes it feels.
food products, as I do air quotes for the
Yeah, me too.
listeners if you're not
Yeah,
watching.
a lot of what we eat isn't. That's good. A lot of what we eat isn't really food.
Mm-hmm.
It's edible, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is it food? Probably not. Um,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things where the shame or judgment really doesn't help.
No.
So realizing where you are, and then realizing where you can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's also a misconception too about, okay, once somebody has a diagnosis of prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, well, I'm a quote diabetic,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing I can do about that. And here's the path that's going to be laid out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to help someone see the hope of, you know what, you can control this. You don't have to just, and for some people, it may look different.
Mm-hmm.
Every person has a different path. But
Right.
realizing that there is hope of controlling that without the insulin, without some of the other things that we have. Not saying those things aren't great tools,
Mm-hmm.
but largely it can be. I've seen it reversed,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I know you have too, with lifestyle modifications.
Yeah, and I think that the big thing, as you said, is to give them the option. I think
hmm
many patients, when they get it, like I had a patient the other day who took his A1C from 14 to 5.9,
Yeah.
off of insulin,
Well.
now still on a couple other medicines, but
hmm
And he's like, the doctor said most diabetics never get their sugar that low. I'm like, well, why would you even say that? Like,
Right.
you're
Setting them up to fail.
right. You're giving them learned helplessness. You're basically saying you don't have a chance of fixing this. So the best you can do is to just try to not be too sick. And the guy is 39 years old too.
Yeah.
Like, he's got hopefully 40 more years plus of life to live. And you're giving him this decades long diagnosis and lack of hope.
Sure.
And the number of times people have come into my office, like, the doctor was mad at me. I'm like, I get it, because doctors are burned out, they're angry, they're frustrated, but like, you're basically tying people's hands behind their back with removing the option of earning their vibrancy back, and that to me, aside from any medication, is just one of the most egregious things that I come across. And try to, as you say, give them the path, give them the hope, give them the option.
Yeah, give them the option. I love that. And option is key, because if we don't take the individual person into consideration. And that's kind of always been the case with medicine. We're seeing, I mentioned the paradigm shift a little bit. We're seeing this become more individualized, because used to, you go to the doctor and they say, you have this, here's your treatment, see you later, see you in a month or whatever. Now we're kind of more so taught to ask some of those questions. So, motivational interviewing, or, whatever you want to call it. But, what are you willing to do?
Right.
What can you do? And not here's what you should do, because I think should is a shame-based word.
Yeah.
But what would that look like for you? What are you willing to change? What could change in your life, and what would that look like? Because there is no one-size-fits-all option either. We're not going to get every single person doing, 4 days a week, an hour in the gym, running 2 or 3 miles a few times a week. That's not doable for everybody. And so
I don't have time to do that.
I don't either.
So
I'm a dad of 3 too, and mine are about the same age as yours. So it's tough, but realizing where they are, giving them the option for where they could be, and saying, what can you do to get there is powerful. Giving them that choice.
Yeah, to me, it's not about perfect health. It's, can we just stop making you sick? Like,
Yes.
here are the 3 levers of poison you're putting into your body. Can we stop one of the levers? Can we stop 2 of the levers? Can you not do the levers on 2 of the days of the week? And then from there, it's just a matter of, if they feel better doing that, they're like, oh, I want to keep doing this. And one thing that I'll say, and I was just kind of noodling on this the other day, I haven't trademarked this yet, but the idea of, like, the missing macronutrient of community and support. And the number of patients that come to me that are doing well until their spouse, their family's like, I made cookies and it's going to hurt my feelings if you don't eat these cookies, or something like that.
Yep.
Or you're getting too skinny and this person's still 250 pounds. They have another 100 pounds to lose. So I think that understanding the challenges they face from not only, like, the world that we live in, but also just their interpersonal relationships that are sabotaging it too. There's a lot of forces working against folks. And so if you can give them the easiest, smallest steps to take, and I mean, in my mind, if everyone that is taking insulin in this country, if we could get them to take 10% less, how much better would they feel? How much weight would lose? How much money would we save if we could get 10% less medication use? Just 10%. Like,
right.
That would be huge. It would be a big chunk of our giant healthcare budget. So, versus this all or nothing thinking, like, well, if you can't totally reverse diabetes with lifestyle, what's the point? Like, there's a lot of points. But,
it's not about perfection.
Yeah.
It's about better.
Yep.
It's about progress. And, a lot of that is, it's like if you're trying to lose weight. If you got 50 pounds to lose, you're not going to lose 50 pounds all at one time. No. You're going to lose it a pound at a time, and realizing that can take time. And it's the same way with some of this lifestyle, lifestyle prescriptions, as I call it. You're not going to reverse it overnight, but can you be a little better tomorrow than you were today?
Yeah, and I think this is where I kind of integrate some of the comedy that I've learned. Like, one of the big lessons
That's my next question.
one of the lessons from improv comedy, like 2 words, yes and, is the main basis of improv. If you hear nothing about it from this conversation, so we agree and we built together. Essentially, just means we're listening. But one of the things that you want to do on stage, if you're doing a scene, is to figure out the person's why, or the character's why. Like, what do they want? What do they want? And if you can figure out what that person in front of you wants, it's a much easier path. Because if you figure out that they want nothing to do with lifestyle, I'm going to save my breath. I'm going to be like, here, listen, if you ever want to talk about diet and exercise, I got all kinds of info. But it sounds like you want nothing to do with that. So here's our options right now. And it saves a lot of heartache too, because they feel heard. Like that's the biggest thing, is if you can make that person, that patient, that client, whoever is in front of you, feel seen, heard, and understood, they're going to be more apt to trust you and listen to you. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I was able to learn doing comedy is, and pharmacists are very, pardon the pun here, prescriptive. We're very left-brained. We like things to be a certain way. And letting go of that and turning every interaction into sort of I won't call it a game, but it's kind of a fun scene. Every patient doesn't realize they're in an improv scene with me. And I'm just listening and responding to them as best I can. So.
Yeah. And that's really, that goes a long ways too, I think, with patients, because it's not a great experience. Let me just say this. It's not a great experience going to the doctor. I mean,
no, it's not fun.
I've never been like, man, I can't wait to go to, and, you might be really sick and know that's going to make you feel better because they're going to prescribe, antibiotic or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's a little different, but it's never like, man, I can't wait to go. It's just such a fun journey. There's usually a lot of shame and judgment. I'm not where I should be. I know that my doctor got mad at me, whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Making it a little more fun with comedy, with making it about that patient and their why, that goes a long ways towards helping them reach their goals, because now it's not something they're doing out of shame and judgment, but it's something that they're doing because, hey, they've given me hope. They understand me as a person, and they've asked me what I thought, which is sometimes unheard of in the medical field.
Oh yeah, like the blank stares I get when I'm like, so what would you like to do? And they're like, wait, what? I get to choose? I'm like, oh yeah, this is.
I came to you. Don't you tell me?
I'm lazy. You pick the roads. I'll give you 3 roads. You pick the one. I'll help you take it.
Yeah.
But I think it makes it more fun to practice too. I mean, we're pharmacists, but this could be any profession. Is if you are, I tell students that are with me that I'm preceptor. I'm going in there and having a conversation. And in the course of this conversation, we're talking about their grandkids, the sports, opening day, and the ones that want to talk about politics. I'm like, all right, whatever. But in the course of these conversations, I'm doing pharmacy. I just don't make it the main, the job gets done, but not in a very checkboxy way, because it's just, I think they're going to be more apt to share and listen and trust you if you're just going to talk to them as a human.
Yeah. Conversations go a long ways. People like to be talked with, not talked to.
Exactly.
So I appreciate you taking that standpoint. I want to back up a little bit because part of your story is very similar to mine in that you went through pharmacy school. You got your PharmD.
Sure did.
You had all the student loans. So I went in-state, but at private school. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
And now, you graduated. I realized the point where I'm like, all right, I graduated. I'm $150,000 in student loan debt. I've started a job. I started a job that, I've kind of always, I couldn't wait to get out of school to start a job, start making real money.
Oh, yeah.
And, I went to work every day and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm like, man, this is what everyone told me would make me happy. And I went to work every day and it was so stressful. And it was just not that fulfilled feeling that I thought I would have. Yeah. You had a similar moment, right?
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of promises made to pharmacy students, mostly related to your income.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was a slow build to realizing that I'm going to work every day and I'm not really, for you, your environment working retail pharmacy was super stressful.
Yeah.
Stressful and probably not feeling like you're making a huge difference. For me, it has morphed into, and I wouldn't say there was a seminal moment, but it has become a slow build of, I went to school for all this time. I'm spending all these hours at this place. I'm doing all of these things. And when my patients are able to do lifestyle, they do better. But I'm doing all this work and it feels like it's almost for nothing. Like I tell my wife, it's like the metaphorically, like if you worked at a tire shop in a town called Nailville, everyone's coming in and we're patching holes. They're going out and it just seems like, what am I doing here? And maybe part of it's getting older and realizing your time is finite. But I was just like, this is not. I picked this thing at 17 because I couldn't play baseball and I was good at science. And like, I mean, I joke. I mean, at 17, we can all. There's so many bad paths people could take, and my joke is like, I took the darkest one. I took pharmacy. Right? It's like my friends. At least they were drinking and having fun.
Right. Why did I choose this?
Yeah, I should not have gotten. I'm glad I did not go any down those paths. That was a joke. Remember, I'm a comedian, but it's been sort of like I don't feel like all of this work has made a huge dent in other people's lives. And so that's where integrating comedy into what I'm doing, writing a couple books, and now building a diabetes coaching program with another pharmacist who feels the same way is the path that I'm taking. And I applaud, because there's many pharmacists and many people in different jobs that are just like, I don't like this. I really hate it. The paycheck's good, so I'm just going to stuff it down, stuff those feelings down, let it eat me from the inside.
Right.
But I mean, my biggest thing, I guess, not a silly reason, but a deeper reason is we have kids. You have kids, 3 kids. All right. Team outnumbered, team zone defense, right on.
That's right.
You tell them, grow up and work hard, and you can be whatever you want to be. And if they see me going to work and hating my life, they're going to say, Dad, why don't you do what you want to do? You are a hypocrite. And I will just have to eat it. Versus, a few years ago, I quit my full-time government job and went and started working part-time, doing the same sort of work, having more time with my kids, having more time to record podcasts with awesome hosts like you, write books, and pursue these things that are more meaningful. And it was a very unconventional thing to do. But I will say that every older person I talked to was like, "Oh, you'll never regret having that time with your kids." And my wife said, "You're happier," which is great. It means that I'm happier around my family, my kids. Which I've really diverged off the initial kind of question there, but
no, that's
the deeper reasons as to why you would walk away from something that is relative to the average American income very lucrative. But if you hate it, what's the point?
Yeah,
like you don't get a reward on your deathbed for like making a lot of money and hating it. Like,
right. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is I think there's a lot of listeners that are hearing this today, and they're nodding their heads when you're talking about, I go to work every day and I hate it. I think there's just a resonance with that. There's so many people that aren't living their dream life. And you've kind of turned it around, and you've carved out a life for yourself that you enjoy. And, I've done something similar, and it looks a little different, but I've made several career moves, and every career move I've made has been a significant hit to my income.
Yep. I feel ya.
Every single move, but every single move has been an improvement to my quality of life. And the time I have with my kids and the time I have with my family. And, that's really what's been so meaningful to me, is finding that thing that makes you happy and pushing through.
Yeah.
One of the ways that you describe that, that you're well adept to kind of go through, are these 4 stages of contentment. I really find those to be ingenious, to be honest with you, because you put into words some things that we oftentimes think and maybe not be able to verbalize. Can you walk through that a little bit and talk about how to break through those stages?
Yeah, those like 4 walls of convention. So we have our expectations, norms, habits, and limits. So like the expectations are basically what society expects of us, maybe what your parents did, maybe what your peers. And so like, oh man, I'm supposed to go to college, get this job, make this money. And my parents were teachers. So when I, told them I have a pharmacy job and this is what I make, they were like, oh, well, it must be nice. I'm like, it is, but you also had summers off. So, let's not forget about that. So it's really hard to overcome those expectations, but it becomes more about, do you care what others think or expect, or do you care what you expect? And then the norms, like blindly following the rules. Who made those rules, right? Who made that 4th meal? Who said we have to snack all day? Taking it back to the lifestyle approach. And then habits. I think we get stuck in these patterns over and over and over again. And then we're like, why am I unhappy? I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I'm still unhappy. So that definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting something different. And then the limits. And then these limits can come from sort of those outside expectations, but we can also put those on ourselves. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And it's just like every Disney movie, every hero's journey is the protagonist doesn't believe they can do it. They find a guide, or they find it within themselves that they can do it. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I was able to do it. And so that is that sort of missing macro of community or support of, like, imagine that you wanted to make a career move, but your wife said, oh, Chad, you can't do that. There's we need that money. You got to suck it up. Or, if your family members are like, you're crazy. And I know that when I left my stable full-time government job to work part-time for a private company, they're like, but your pension, but your health. I'm like, I know. Stop reminding me of the dollar signs that I'm leaving behind. But
right.
the limits of, you can't reverse diabetes. You can't do this. Well, who says? And I don't want to listen to those limits. So, and they're ingrained in us from a young age. And as parents, I'm very careful. My wife and I are very careful about what we say to our kids, around our kids, what you can do, what you can't do. And realizing that, man, like life is competition. You played sports. There's the other team, but man, every competition is really within your own brain. Like you're if you can overcome yourself, there really isn't anything that you can't accomplish on sort of an outside level. Yeah. And it seems so simple. It seems so simple. Yeah. But then you get into it and you're like, oh wow, I really am sabotaging myself with how I'm thinking and then acting.
Yeah. Mindset is key. And the older I get, I'm a little older than you, Cory. I'm 41. Okay. And the older I get, I like to think I'm wiser. I'm not sure about that, but
I'll vouch. You definitely have that air of wisdom that many. You're 41. There's
it's the gray hairs, isn't it?
Listen, I'm gonna call out my parents' generation of the boomers. Like I feel like you can be old and not wise, and you can be younger and wise. And there's a lot of older people who aren't wise anymore. But anyway, you've got that wisdom. The older you get, I interrupted. My apologies.
No, I appreciate it. The older I get, the more that I realize the truth in what you just said. That there are these expectations that are put on us, sometimes by ourselves. But, it's like, all right, I'm doing the thing. Going back to when I realized, okay, I can't do retail pharmacy forever. I'm going to become a jaded, angry old man, like every other person I worked with.
Yep.
But when I realized that, I'm like, I've done the very thing that the world, whoever the world is, the world told me that I needed to do to be happy. And I realized the emptiness in that. And, I think a lot of people get stuck in that. We do the things that are expected of us. We have these conventional thoughts, conventional habits, conventional ideas that we try to, nobody wants to be radical. We've got to walk the path and we've got to do the things. And, but then realizing that, that may not be your path. That may not be the path that's going to lead you to life of joy.
Right.
That may not be what's going to fulfill you and leave you satisfied at the end of the day. And realizing we only get one of these. we get one trip, the end. I want to make that count. And not only do I want to make that count, but I want to make sure that I'm doing what brings me fulfillment and satisfaction. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right.
And so I love that you have had and honestly, like in today's world, with all of these conventional thoughts and ideas and expectations, it takes guts. Call it what you want to, but we'll just call it for this purpose. It takes guts to step outside of those conventions and carve your own path.
Yeah.
It takes guts to say, you know what, I'm going to give up that pension. I'm going to give up whatever it is. Yeah, you're reminding me, what about this? What about this? I haven't forgotten about it. I didn't make this decision because I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that there are things that are more important to me than that. So really, when it comes down to it, Cory, it seems to be about priorities. Is that an accurate statement for what you've been through?
I would say so. And I think there's a couple of thoughts that come to mind. I think it's priorities. It's understanding the season of life that I'm in. So, with young kids, they will get older and become angry teenagers that want nothing to do with me. And if I want to go make more money while they're off with their friends, then there's a chance I can go do that. Right now, they seem to really like me. So I'm going to lean into that. And ultimately, as a parent, having more time to be with them and selfishly sort of influence them and guide them when they're still more apt to listening.
Sure.
And another thought comes to mind, like walking away from a air quote sure thing. I think I'll bring a lesson of comedy back into this. And I think the best comedies are ones that have a strong, we call it base reality. So think of Seinfeld. It's a show where it's simple relationships or The Office. It's set in an office, but within it, there's a lot of variety and difference and things that can really pop. And so for us, we work jobs. I still have a W-2 job. We have to pay bills. We can't ignore that. We, the dream life. I'm just going to move out on an island and
I'm going to get off the grid.
Right. No, we're still logically going through life and doing the things we have to do, paying bills, taking care of our health, taking care of ourselves. But within that, there is room now to maneuver and build something on our own that will help support our reality and also bring that deeper meaning. And as you say, that priority of of making an impact, like climbing up. I'm fortunate enough to have been able to climb up Maslow's hierarchy to get to that point where I want to fulfill something more fulfilling personally.
Mm-hmm.
If something were to happen in life and I, air quote, had to go back to full-time pharmacy and do something I didn't really love, but it meant that we had shelter and food, then I do that. And I've acknowledged that, like that. And that's a possibility. Like maybe when I'm 65, I'll have regretted this choice at 38. But for now, this is the season we're in. This is the priority. And this is the way we're choosing to live life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that's really encouraging for those people out there. And it's not saying that, we're not telling everybody, go quit your job.
No.
Go part-time,
Yeah.
But what we're saying is this, what brings you satisfaction and fulfillment?
Mm-hmm.
It might just be worth it to pursue that.
Yeah.
And your life's an illustration of that as well. So,
thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to talk to other folks with the who've had the similar, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do something different. It's scary, but we'll do it.
It is. It can be scary. And each step of my journey has been scary. And here I am, podcasting, never thought I'd be doing that, and starting a men's coaching business. Never thought, I just need one more thing to do. Right. Mm-hmm. And, but there's something about stepping into your purpose, and, you can fulfill that in a lot of different ways, but that's what I'm after. That's what you're after. Mm-hmm. And man, this has been fun.
Yeah.
We've talked about a lot of different things, hadn't we?
Covered a lot of ground. Yeah. There's a lot of depth and variety to life. And you've in 30 to 35 minutes, we've gone through a bunch. I appreciate you shepherding me through so much valuable information and valuable approaches and mindset to life.
Yeah. We'll have to do a round 2 sometime, man. This has been fun. I want to so we've talked about lifestyle management of chronic disease.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about, food, exercise, those sort of things. We've talked about life.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about fulfilling your passion, your purpose. What would be something you want to leave my audience with, Cory? It can be something related to those things. It could be something funny. But and I don't usually do this, but I just feel led. You're such an interesting guy. I feel like that you have so many strengths. But what would be your closing remarks to our audience today?
I think you got to figure out what's important, and don't be afraid to do what's important to you. And that, to me, for me, it's like number one, family/health, and getting into sort of some of the nitty gritty of societal expectations. We don't drive nice cars. We have a modest house, but it's allowed us to have more time.
Yeah.
And this is train of thought going here, but figuring out what's important to you. And then to me, it's owning your time. Own your time as much as you can. And that's been the blessing that we've found ourselves with life. You mentioned building a dream life. I literally told my wife last week, oh my gosh, we're living our dream life. It was a Thursday like this. We went to the library, we went to the bank with our kids, we ran some errands at Home Depot, but we had the freedom to do it. At the end of the day, we played indoor kickball, because we let our kids play ball in the house, because that's a priority for me, is letting them be active. And I was laying down at night, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a Thursday. We hung out all day. We didn't have stress. It was a day she was off from work. I don't work Thursdays usually. It's this is a dream life. So your dream life is closer than you think. Go get it.
I love it. And that reminds me that, sometimes trade-offs, there's trade-offs with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you're looking at what you're trading for the life that you're living. So, Cory, man, this has been awesome. Can you tell our listeners where to find out more about you and how to enter into your world?
Yeah, go to CoryJenks.com, and my parents were cheap, so no E in Cory, CoryJenks.com. So
sold separately.
They didn't buy the vowel there. But if you go there, you can sign up for my newsletter, get to me on the various social medias that I admittedly don't post a lot on, but if you find me there, send me a message, and if something resonated with you, great, positive or negative, I don't care. I'm always looking to hear what people are thinking of my approach to life. But I appreciate your sharing your platform with me. If you go to my website, I have written a couple books. I have a healthcare book and a dad book, so you can find it all from the website there too.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm all about both of those things. So I can attest, Cory's a man just full of knowledge about all kinds of different things, and you're doing important work, my friend. So keep it up, and I hope you have a blessed one, man.
Likewise.
Thank you for listening to the Rev Rx Podcast. We hope you enjoyed what you heard today, and if so, we'd love it if you would hit that subscribe button so that you'll never miss a new episode from us. Also, feel free to leave us reviews and comments, as we'd love to hear from you. Be blessed and be the very best you.